Welcome to our deep dive into the Oval Office decisions that led to President Trump's tariff pause. Now, I know what you're thinking. A tariff pause sounds about as exciting as watching paint dry, right? But hold on to your monocles, folks, because this seemingly dull event reveals a fascinating web of economic anxieties, political maneuvering, and enough internal White House drama to make even the most jaded reality TV producer blush. Today, we'll uncover the three key factors that influence this significant move, peeling back the layers of this political onion like we're trying to find the world's smallest Russian nesting doll. We'll wade through the swamp, no, not that swamp, of economic data, dissect the political theatre with the precision of a heart surgeon, and analyse the whispers and shouts emanating from the West Wing. Buckle up, buttercups, because things are about to get interesting. Remember that time you accidentally put a wool sweater in the dryer and it shrunk to the size of a tea cozy? It was a simple mistake, but the consequences were immediate and irreversible. You probably stared at it in disbelief, wondering how something so small could have such a big impact. That's kind of what the tariffs were doing to certain American industries. They were squeezing them, shrinking their profits, and leaving them gasping for air. We're talking about the automotive industry, where car parts suddenly cost more than a semester at an Ivy League school. Imagine trying to keep a factory running when every component you need is suddenly twice as expensive. And then there's the agricultural sector, where farmers were stuck with mountains of unsold soybeans because, well, China wasn't exactly eager to buy. These farmers had invested their time, money, and sweat into their crops, only to see them rot away. Now, imagine you're a farmer who voted for Trump because he promised to make America great again. You believed in his vision, trusted his words, and cast your vote with hope. And suddenly, you're facing bankruptcy because your biggest customer just slapped a tariff on your soybeans. Your fields are barren, your barns are full of unsold produce, and your bank account is dwindling. You'd be pretty miffed, right? You'd feel betrayed, confused, and desperate for a solution. You might even say you were feeling a tad soy about the whole situation. It's a bitter pill to swallow when your livelihood is on the line, and you wouldn't be alone. Across the country, countless farmers and factory workers were feeling the same sting. See, these industries, they're not just abstract entities, they're made up of real people with real jobs and real mortgages. These are the folks who keep the wheels of the economy turning, and when those jobs and mortgages are on the line, they tend to pick up the phone and call the only person who can do something about it, their friendly neighborhood congressman. They voice their concerns, share their struggles, and plead for help. Now imagine being on the receiving end of those calls, day in and day out. It's a constant barrage of worry, fear, and frustration. It's like listening to a broken record, only the record is playing the sound of your constituents' businesses circling the drain. Each call is a reminder of the economic turmoil unfolding in your district. That, my friends, is the sound of political pressure building. It's a crescendo of voices demanding action. And it wasn't just phone calls. The pressure came from all sides. Oh no, these industries, they know how to play the game. They mobilized their resources and took their fight to the halls of power. They hired lobbyists, those charming individuals who could convince a brick wall to vote in a local election, to work their magic on Capitol Hill. These lobbyists are masters of persuasion, armed with compelling arguments and data. These lobbyists, armed with briefcases full of statistics and enough charisma to power a small city, descended upon Washington like a swarm of well-dressed locusts, all singing the same tune. "These tariffs are killing us!" They were relentless, determined to make their case heard. It was a full-court press, a symphony of economic despair, orchestrated to make the administration feel the heat. Every meeting, every conversation was a plea for relief, and feel it they did. The pressure was palpable, impossible to ignore, because here's the thing about politicians. They might not always listen to the people, but they sure as hell listen when their chances of getting re-elected are on the line. Their political survival depends on it. And with the 2020 election looming like a particularly awkward family reunion, the pressure to do something, anything to quell the economic storm, was mounting. The stakes were high and the clock was ticking. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or rather the dragon in the South China Sea. This region has been a hotbed of geopolitical tension for years, with multiple countries laying claim to its strategic waters. But in recent times, it has become a focal point of US-China relations. adding another layer of complexity to an already intricate diplomatic puzzle. Because while domestic pressure was building like a pressure cooker about to blow, Trump was also engaged in a delicate dance with China, a dance that required both finesse and force. This wasn't just any dance, it was a trade war that was less a waltz and more a full-blown breakdancing battle, complete with awkward head spins and questionable legwork. The stakes were high and the moves were anything but graceful. See, Trump, with all the subtlety of a rhinoceros in a china shop, had slapped tariffs on Chinese goods like he was playing a high-stakes game of whack-a-mole. Each tariff was a calculated move aimed at pressuring China into concessions. And China, not one to back down from a challenge, retaliated with tariffs of their own. It was a tit-for-tat escalation that saw both sides digging in their heels. It was a classic game of chicken, with both sides hurtling towards each other at breakneck speed, the only question being who would blink first. The tension was palpable and the stakes couldn't be higher. The global economy watched with bated breath like a tense Wimbledon final where the players were armed with trade agreements instead of tennis rackets. Every move was scrutinized, every statement analyzed for hidden meanings. Meanwhile, on Twitter, Trump was busy live tweeting the entire debacle, firing off 280-character missives with the grace of a toddler wielding a super soaker. His tweets added fuel to the fire, often causing market jitters and diplomatic headaches. It was enough to make even the most seasoned diplomat reach for the antacids. The constant back and forth, the unpredictability, it was all taking a toll on those tasked with managing the fallout. But behind the scenes, away from the glare of the Twitter sphere, actual diplomats were engaged in frantic negotiations, trying to hammer out a trade deal that would satisfy both sides. These were the unsung heroes working tirelessly to find common ground. It was like trying to herd cats. Only the cats were two of the world's largest economies, and the herders were sleep-deprived diplomats fueled by coffee and the sheer terror of a global recession. The pressure was immense, and the margin for error was razor-thin. And then there was the small matter of the 2020 election. The political stakes were just as high as the economic ones, and every move was being watched through the lens of electoral advantage. See, Trump knew that a prolonged trade war with China wouldn't exactly play well with voters, especially those in key swing states who were already feeling the pinch of higher prices. The economic pain was real, and it was hitting home. So he needed a win, a way to show that he was tough on China, but also capable of striking a deal. The optics were crucial, and the narrative had to be carefully managed. The tariff pause then became a strategic maneuver, a way to ease tensions with China while also giving the impression that he was making progress on trade. It was a calculated risk, but one that he hoped would pay off both economically and politically. Now let's step inside the White House, that hallowed hall of power where decisions that shape the world are made. Here, the coffee is lukewarm, the carpets are suspiciously stain-resistant, and the internal politics are more cutthroat than a season of House of Cards. It's a place where every decision is scrutinized, every move is calculated, and every word is weighed for its potential impact. The decision to pause the tariffs wasn't just about economics or international diplomacy. It was a complex interplay of various factors, each pulling in different directions. It was also about the constant tug-of-war between competing factions within the Trump administration, each with its own agenda and vision for America's future. On one side, you had the tariff men, those economic nationalists who believed that tariffs were the best way to protect American jobs and bring China to heel. They were the hawks in the room, always ready to escalate the trade war, consequences be damned. To them, tariffs were a tool of economic warfare, a way to assert American dominance. On the other side, you had the free traders, those who believed that tariffs were nothing more than a tax on American consumers and that the best way to deal with China was through dialogue and cooperation. They were the doves, always urging caution, always trying to find a peaceful resolution. They saw tariffs as a blunt instrument, one that could do more harm than good. The free traders argued that tariffs would ultimately hurt American consumers by raising prices on everyday goods from groceries to electronics. They believed that the best path forward was through negotiation and mutual understanding, not through economic confrontation. They were the voices of reason, always advocating for a measured approach, always looking for a way to de-escalate tensions. And then, of course, there was Trump himself, the ultimate decider, the man who seemed to relish in playing his advisors off against each other. Like a conductor leading a particularly chaotic orchestra, Trump thrived on the tension and conflict, using it to his advantage. It was a recipe for policy whiplash, with the administration seemingly changing course on trade every other week. One day they were threatening to slap tariffs on everything but the kitchen sink. The next, they were talking about a beautiful trade deal that was just around the corner. The unpredictability was both a strategy and a symptom of the internal chaos. The tariff pause, then, was the result of this internal struggle, a compromise that satisfied no one but at least temporarily halted the economic bleeding. It was a classic Trump move, a decision made not out of careful deliberation, but rather out of a desire to quiet the noise, both from outside the White House and within. In the end, the tariff tug-of-war was a microcosm of the broader battles being fought within the administration, a testament to the complexities and contradictions of governing in the Trump era. It was a high-stakes game with real-world consequences, a reminder that in the White House, every decision is a balancing act, every move a calculated risk. And as the world watched, the players inside the White House continued their intricate dance, each step shaping the future of global trade. The tariff saga was far from over, but for now, the pause offered a brief respite in an otherwise relentless battle. Thanks for watching. If you found this analysis insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth looks at major political decisions. As we've seen, the decision to pause the tariffs was a complex one, driven by a confluence of factors, from the cries of struggling industries to the delicate dance of international diplomacy to the internal power struggles within the Trump administration. Leave a comment below with your thoughts on Trump's tariff pause and what you think the future holds for US trade policies. Was it a shrewd tactical maneuver or a desperate attempt to stave off economic disaster? Only time will tell. But one thing is for sure, the trade war is far from over.